During the COVID pandemic, my father fell very seriously ill. To keep me safe, my mother sent me away to live with my dadu. My dadu lived in a small town near the mountains. My dadu is an environmental scientist. Hi, Dadu.
Oh, Omar, how wonderful to see you. Did you have a comfortable journey?
Yes, Dadu, very comfortable. Thank you.
Ah, well, you've come from the crowded city, but this town is very quiet and very green. So why don't you go outside and explore? I have some work to finish, and then we can sit down and chat, and I can find out more about what you're doing. Is that okay?
Yes, Dadu, I'll go outside and explore.
How wonderful to have him here.
Wow, so many sounds of birds. Dadu's house is amazing. It's growing on the plants. Mushrooms. It's an infection which will kill the plants. Dadu, there are lots of weird mushrooms growing in your lawn. I think you should kill them, otherwise, they'll kill your plants.
Mushrooms? Oh, well, they are a good sign. They're not going to kill my plants. Mushrooms, Omar, are a sign that the environment is perfectly balanced and doing its job in a good way.
Really?
You see, mushrooms help in the decomposition of dead leaves and wood, which otherwise doesn't decompose. So, mushrooms help make the soil more fertile by decomposing this, and so that's good for the plants.
So what you're saying, Dadu, is that the mushrooms are helping the plants?
That's right. The mushrooms help the plants, and the plants help the mushrooms. And the insects help the mushrooms and the plants. And that's a healthy ecological system.
Oh, I see.
In ancient cultures, they had gods to depict this collective expression of life. They had gods which were part animal, part plant, part insect, and they used to worship them because they understood this wisdom. And this is the wisdom we need to actually promote these days, that everything depends on everything else. Take one plant away or one insect away, and the entire balance gets upset. So it's very important to maintain this balance.
Oh, what Dadu was saying sounded really weird. I saw pictures of a god called Kernunos, half animal, half plant, with insects and all. Then in the afternoon, I fell asleep. I had a really weird dream. I was entering a magical forest. And suddenly there was this creature, and it was looking at me.
They call me Kernunos. Of life I am the boss. I am part mammal, part mushroom, part insect, part tree, part fern, part moss. For all my harmony and strife, I am a collective expression of life. The tree, the moss, the insect, the fungus cannot do without each other. Take one away from another, it's like pulling a child from its mother. Because the moss depends on the insect, depends on the fungus, depends on the tree that grows high. Take one away from another, the other is certain to die. And when the rest do die, we all forget to ask why. And if we start to cry and ask why, you may understand that I do not lie. Because the tree, the moss, the insect, the fungus. The tree, the moss, the insect, the fungus cannot do without each other. Take one away from another, it's like pulling a child from its mother. The moss depends on the insect, depends on the fungus, depends on the tree. Then all of a sudden, I was in a completely different part of the same forest. Good day. Oh, you're talking to me? Does it not sound like I'm talking to you? Oh, yes. Well, I've never spoken to a mushroom before. Aha! When you hear a sound that is near the ground, your heart will start to pound. You will realize what you see with your eyes are interwoven kingdoms where life resides. Interwoven kingdoms? Yes. There's a kingdom of animals to which you belong, and a kingdom of plants that stands all night long. And then there is a third kingdom. A third kingdom? Yes. The largest kingdom ever known. The deepest kingdom ever grown, I say with a wondrous sigh, the kingdom of fungi. The kingdom of fungi. Yes, you can say fungi, or you can say fungi. It doesn't matter, for that is my kingdom. And our food is dead wood, and it keeps us in a good mood. Hey, how you doing, dude?
Ah, this is the mushroom that was growing outside.
Scientists call me Copranillus.
Wow.
A little bit of sunshine and a little bit of rain. I am extremely intelligent, but I just don't have a brain. Your plants can't die without me. I don't mean to be rude. I'm not just Copranillus, I'm also dead wood.
You're not just Copranillus, you're also dead wood.
A little bit of wood and a little bit of rot. Try to get to know me and I'll put you in a spot. I'm not your best friend and I'm not your food. I'm not just Copranillus, I'm also dead wood.
You're not just Copranillus, you're also dead wood.
A little bit of gravel and a little bit of root. My head's above the ground and my heart's below your boot. Your plants can't die without me. I don't mean to be rude. I'm not just Copernicus, I'm also dead wood. You're not just Copernicus, you're also dead wood. Well, you go out there and be nice to us fungi, sonny boy. You're not just Copernicus, you're also dead wood. I told Dadu about the dream. Ah, well, I'm glad that mushrooms have caught your imagination. Now will begin your discovery of science. Did you know that most of what you see of the mushroom is just a very small part of the fungi? Most of it lives below the earth in a vast network called mycelium. It's like cobwebs, you know? Cobwebs, and they spread all over the earth. That night, I lay awake for a long time. I kept thinking, and then I finally fell asleep. This is another dream, Omar. Welcome to the Underworld. Mycelium, 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 mycelium. Don't be afraid, for I am the mycelium maid. Wow. I live under the earth, and I spread far and wide. You see, mycelium is thinner than the roots, so mycelium is able to grow far and wide and get to places where the root cannot reach. And so I am able to get for the plant minerals and nutrients from far away, because I can spread far and wide. And I get nutrients for the plant, and the plant sends me sugar in return. And I like to eat the sugar in return. So I love the plant, and the plant loves me. I am also called the Wood Wide Web. The plant roots and mycelium have been in this amazing relationship for a long, long, long time. In fact, so long ago, even before human beings were born on the earth, mycelium and the roots have lived happily together in this amazing world underground. I am the brain of all mycelium. Wow, what a dream! The dream was almost like magic. It was as if it had really happened. I went to tell Dadu about my dream, but I realized he was very upset. You see, there had been a landslide in the mountains next to his town, and there was a bus that had got buried under the landslide. He was very upset and he was making many phone calls to find out how this had happened. Dadu, what happens to the mycelium when there's a landslide? Oh, Omar. Landslides happen on mountain slopes where trees have already been cut. Therefore, the roots are already dead, and the mycelium has already withered away. That is why it is so important to keep the forests, to preserve the natural vegetation of the hills. Because when that network is depleted because of deforestation, the soil becomes loose, and that's what causes landslides. Oh,
I missed my mother, and I missed my father and my friends. Sometimes I would just sit outside and stare at the ground. I was not alone. There was so much life under my feet.
it's like magic.
I asked Dadu, do scientists believe in magic, Dadu?
Magic. That's a very good question. What is magic? Well, what the mind cannot understand, we call magic. And when the mind can understand it, we call it science. So what is magic and what is science? All science began with magic. It's how much your mind is willing to accept and understand. Magic. Of course there is magic. That is why there is science.
Talking to Dadu was becoming great fun, and he was telling me many very interesting stories.
Once upon a time, there was a rock who wished to be alive. Now you might think that that's silly. How can a rock be alive? Well, that's why it was a wish. And once upon a time, there was an algae who wanted to live on the land. Now, algae are very tiny plants that live in the waters of the lakes, ponds, and seas. In fact, they are so tiny that to be able to see them, we need a special instrument called a microscope. Well, this algae wanted to live on the land. Now you might think that that is impossible, but that is why it was a wish. A wish. And once upon a time, there was a fungus who wanted to be an artist. This fungus wanted to be a sculptor and wanted to carve fancy shapes. Now you might think that that's impossible, but that's what life is about. It's about wishes that make the impossible possible. Now one day there was a tsunami. All the water came rushing onto the land. And along with the water came the algae. And when the water receded back into the ocean, the algae remained on the land. Now the algae was very happy on the wet rock, but some fungus also began to grow on it. So the algae and the fungus shared the rock, growing side by side. But very soon the sun came out, and the rock began to dry. "Oh dear," said the algae, "this is not good. I will surely die if the sun comes out and dries up the entire rock." "Well," said the fungus, "I can protect you. I've always wanted to be an artist. I've always wanted to build structures. So, if you use the sunlight and make sugar, then I get to eat the sugar. And with the energy that I get, I can make for you structures that will prevent you from drying out. So, the fungus helps the algae, and the algae helps the fungus, and that is what we call a lichen. And so the rock finally came to life and its dream came true. And the algae was able to live on land, and the fungi was able to be a sculptor, and together they lived happily. Until this day, they are called a lichen. Dadu told me about many types of fungi. There's not only mushrooms, there are different types of fungus, and some are really large, but there are some even so small that you can't see them with the eyes. And then Dadu taught me how to make bread. Bread is also made from a fungus. So you take flour, which is maida, and you mix it with water, and then you put fungus in it, which is yeast. Yeast is a completely different type of fungus.
So for the recipe of bread, you need 1 cup of flour plus about half a cup of flour extra, half a cup of warm water. The water should be warm enough that your finger goes in and doesn't get burnt. Then you need 1 teaspoon of sugar and 1 pinch of salt. And this is the fungus. It's called instant dry yeast, and you get it in the market. So what you do is you take 1 teaspoon of instant dry yeast. Now you take a small bowl in which you put the salt and the sugar, and you pour the warm water into that bowl as well. Then you stir it so that it all mixes up together. When the salt and sugar has completely dissolved, then you keep it on the side. Now in another bowl, you add the flour 1 cup, and you add the yeast 1 teaspoon. Mix it with a fork and then add slowly all the water and sugar and salt mixture. See, it will become like a paste. Keep mixing it so that all the flour becomes wet. Now remember that half a cup of extra flour that you had, you pour that into this. And now it's time to get messy. You have to use your hands. So you use your hands and you start to now get the dry flour into the wet flour like this, and you mix it in. Now if your fingers get really sticky, you can take a little bit of oil and wet your fingers with it like this, and then continue to knead the dough. This oil is the ordinary cooking oil that you use in your kitchen. This is called kneading the dough. K-N-E-A-D, knead. So you use your knuckles to knead the dough. It's all sticky and messy. You do keep doing this for about 5 minutes. You want all the yeast and the water and the flour to completely mix together. Soon you will be able to collect the dough in a little lump in the middle of the bowl. Once you have done this, cover it with another big bowl and leave it for about 2 hours. After 2 hours, you will see that the dough has completely swollen. It has become 3 times the amount it was because the yeast has used the sugar and grown.
So one thing was definitely clear. All fungi loved sugar.
Next, you take a baking tray. Now you take all the dough that has swollen, it's become sticky again. So you can do the same trick. Take the cooking oil on your fingers and use it to take the dough out. It will be very sticky, and put it on the baking tray. Once the dough is on the baking tray, you can shape it. To shape the dough, again put a little bit of cooking oil on your fingers like this and allow yourself to slowly and gently shape the dough into a round lump. Once you have shaped the dough, again cover it and leave it for another hour. After an hour, you will see that the dough has completely expanded. You can even see holes. That is the place where the bread will become spongy because the yeast has grown so much.
Now comes the part where you need to have an adult. The oven has to be set to 180 degrees centigrade and switched on for about 15 minutes so that it becomes really hot.
Once the oven is nice and hot, you can slide the tray with the dough inside the oven and shut it and bake it for half an hour. After half an hour, take it out carefully from the hot oven and leave it to cool. Once the bread is cool, you can then cut yourself a nice slice and have it. See? The holes are the place where the fungi had grown.
So that is why there are holes in the bread and bread is spongy. So bon appetit. I hope you also have great fun making the bread. I've decided that when I grow up, I would like to be both a writer as well as a mycologist. A mycologist is someone who studies fungus. I would like to study the different types of helpful fungus and tell the world about them.